Okay, well, is everyone ready? I'd like to call this meeting to order. Would you please all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all for joining us this evening. All are present with the exception of Melissa Anger. There is no one that's presented a statement by noon today for the open forum. So we'll move into the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So made.
By Stacy, second by
Second.
Michael. Any comments or questions? Seeing none. Terry?
Lee, I'm sorry, I might have missed it. Did you say that this is being recorded?
I'm sorry, I did not. This meeting is now being recorded. Thank you for the reminder. Are there any comments or questions on the agenda? Seeing none, that's a roll call vote. So Jonathan?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Stacy?
Aye.
Enrique?
Aye.
And aye. That motion passes 6-0. On our consent agenda, these are items that are routine in nature and will be enacted by one motion. There is no separate discussion. They include the financials, check wire transfer disbursement summary, wire transfer EFT and ACH banking activity, bank reconciliation statements for March 2020 and April 2020, building bond investment reports for the 2018A and 2018B BPM report, the monthly wire detail, monthly health dental wire detail, monthly check detail, monthly ACH detail, the approval of school board minutes for the board meeting on May 4th and the board study session on May 18th, the resignations, terminations, and non-renewals as listed, and the naming of the audit firm for 2020 is MMKR for its auditing services for the 2020 school year. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So made.
By Jonathan, second by Stacy. All those in favor? Oh, I can't do that. Jonathan?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Stacy?
Aye.
Enrique?
Aye.
That motion carries 6-0. Thank you. Now we'll move on to the resolution of gifts. We have donations from Mr. and Mrs. Dominic of $600 to go to Jeffers Pond Elementary. Actually, it was $300 in a company match for Jeffers Pond Elementary. I'm sorry. Remax Preferred, $750 for the Bridges Seniors for gift cards, and the Prior Lake Rotary for $1,750 for gift cards for Bridges Seniors. Do I have a motion to accept the resolution of the donations?
So moved.
So made.
By Michael, second by Mary. That's a roll call vote as well. Jonathan?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Stacy?
Aye.
Enrique?
Aye.
That motion carries 6-0. There is no Laker Pride or Laker Showcase this evening, so we'll move on to personnel items. Jim Quirham, I'll let you get started. You've got a few.
Good evening. Several items as far as personnel are concerned, and although we're changing it up a little bit, you know, we had some layoffs, some non-scheduling of work hours, different things in mass of lots of people. We have the opportunity tonight to call some of those people back. So we moved this under personnel instead of under consent, as we did when we took the first action. And so tonight we're able to say that we are recommending the approval of calling back several, or actually many, of the kids company and community ed staff from layoff status. And we request that the board approve that action.
Do I have a motion to approve the recall of Kids Company and Community Ed staff from layoff status?
So made.
Moved.
By Enrique, second by Stacy. Are there any comments or questions? Stacy?
Jim, I'm assuming this has to do with some future or programming coming forward with Kids Company. Is there, like, what's in the works here?
Yep. So they've been planning the last several weeks to get Kids Company off the ground for summer programming, and they got a really good response from parents. So we've conservatively looked at plans, and maybe Terry could talk to this more, but really wanted to make sure that this was going to be successful, not only for parents, but financially for the district, that those things were connected. And we think they got a good plan in place. So we're able to call back a lot of folks. I think on that list, there's 65 or so.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, seeing none. I believe I have a motion in a second. So Jonathan?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Stacy?
Aye.
Enrique?
Aye.
And I'll say aye. That motion carries 6-0. Next.
Sure. And because we took the action and placed A under personnel items, we did the same then for candidates for employment. So we are requesting the board take action on the candidates for employment as listed in the board packet.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the candidates for employment?
So moved.
By
Second.
Michael, second by Jonathan. Any comments or questions? Okay, seeing none. Jonathan?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Stacy?
Aye.
Enrique?
Aye.
And that motion passes 6-0. And your last one.
And finally, C, approval for leaves of absence. Again, moving this under personnel this time for this month. We are just looking for the board to approve the following leaves as they are listed in the board packet.
Do I have a motion to approve the leaves of absence as listed?
So made.
By Stacy, second.
Second.
By Enrique. Any comments or questions? Seeing none. Jonathan?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Stacy?
Aye.
Enrique?
Aye.
And that motion carries 6-0. Thank you, Jim. Now we'll move on to unfinished business, facilities planning and construction. This is an update, I believe, by Jim Delbo.
Thank you, Chair Shimmick, School Board, Dr. Stallo. A really brief and high-arching update to the construction that's been going on. We have a FLIRT meeting coming up within the next couple of weeks, and we'll have photos to share with the board at the next meeting. But in summary, we have a lot of work going on currently at the high school. A big, heavy focus on the kitchen. That was a big job, and it is pretty extensive work right now. Activity center is coming along great right now. Court's in, the equipment is up. Weight room, we're starting to move that tomorrow into the new space from some of the old equipment. Terrazzo starts next week. Tower D is going up. Brick is almost done. Roof is going on. Windows are next, and front entries making great progress as well. Curbing and pavement on the north side of the north and east sides of the activity center, and a LTFM project we had for maintenance was the resurface and restripe of the high school track, and that was completed as of Saturday. Twin Oaks, we're continuing with the classroom additions, terrazzo in the hallways, skylights, window glazing. Turnover for that space will be mid-July. Five Hawks windows, another LTFM project. The windows openings have been cut. Windows should be going in here shortly. Really going to add a lot of nice light to that space. And if you remember, a few years ago, we started that project, and this will be the completion of all of that work. Grainwood is absolutely gutted right now. It's amazing to see all the wood in that space. Usually, when you look at it commercial or school building, a lot of metal and steel. There's an awful lot of wood in that space. But that one's going well too. We have the footings in for the new cafeteria. We'll have block going up soon, and a lot of work, demo work going on currently in there. Hamilton Ridge is coming along really nice. Marine, Mullen gave tours to Principal Zawolinsky and staff last week of about 50 or so staff members to get them in before their summer was over, so they could see the work now and the work that will be completed when they come back. Tower A finishes are done. Plumbing fixtures are being installed. Towers B and C are close behind. Learning stairs are in. Brickwork is complete. North bus loop is curbed and paved with the first lift, and south lot curbed. And again, our next board meeting, you'll have some exciting photos. That is my report. Thank you.
Does anyone have any comments or questions? Okay, thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
It was exciting. Can't wait to see it in person. Moving on to elected officials during your crisis guideline, Dr. Stallo.
Thank you, Chair Shimmick and board members. And actually, if I could just take a quick comment on to what Jim said. I know Jim and I were also talking last week, and also would like to invite board members to a tour. We thought it'd be very fun for you to see some of the work right now, and again, see it then this fall. So I'll work with Jim on that, and we'll get something out to you. But pertaining to this particular agenda item, several months ago, we brought forward the notion that as we are working on our crisis emergency response work, and especially through our learning with incident command related to our standard reunification method, some of our partners who worked with other elected officials asked if we had any kind of guidance document for you all as we work through or would have to work through a crisis. And we didn't. So we took a sample of another organization and just wanted to be sure that we had something readily available for board members as elected officials that they could follow and look to really see what is the role, how fast might we need to pull together some policy decisions, things like that, and just ways that we would also ensure strong communication. So I'm just bringing this back. Like I said, it was several months ago that we talked about this at a study session, and you had a chance to review the draft at that time, and we just wanted to close the loop on this. So are recommending that this guidance be approved by the board should we ever need to lean into it during an emergency or a crisis. So with that, I would just seek board approval.
So this does take board action, just for clarification, correct?
I think we do have it down, Lee. It's not a policy, but it would certainly be, nope. Actually, I'm getting a little, we don't need approval on this. So I'm bringing it forward to you as just a reminder that this will be one of the protocols that we have in place, and we'll make sure that it's available to you. I apologize about that, Chair.
All right, that's fine. Okay, so this is protocol. Does anyone have any comments or questions about it? Mary? Hi, Mary.
Is during the next practice session or tabletop exercise that does this, is there any way a board member or whomever can actually not participate, but kind of see what's going on?
Yeah, we always, thanks for the question, Mary. We do have, as part of our community crisis response team, our board chair, it does sit on that committee. And, you know, certainly we can look at when we get that date rescheduled, you know, for other board members who would want to, you know, observe during that time. We were going to have that, exercise happen in June, and that got postponed. So yeah, I'll make sure that we take a look at that when we get that rescheduled and put that offer out there for board members.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you, Terry.
We'll
move on to new business. The current year 19-20 budget update, Fund 4 and Fund 7. Julie?
Good evening, Chair Schmick, Dr. Stallo, and board members. Tonight, I'm asking the board to update the current year Fund 4 Community Education and Fund 7 Debt Service. The reason for the updates for Fund 4 is due to the changes that were required due to the effects of COVID-19 on our fee pay system, mainly in the community ed area. And then for Fund 7, it's due to refinancing our bonds in December of last year, or 2019. So I would like approval to update these budgets. As you can see, I just want to talk a little bit about community education. As of right now, this is our best estimate that we would still continue to see a positive fund balance in our community education fund. We are still trying to hash out all of the requirements, and I'm waiting to see what happens here with our June kids company. We did our best estimate for what we thought would happen for the month of June for that. And so that's what a budget is a best estimate. And so we feel pretty positive about where we're at with our community education fund right now.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the budget updates for Fund 4 and Fund 7? By Stacy. Second?
Second.
Any comments or discussion? Question? Stacy?
Just in the school readiness, can you just talk a little bit about the deficit there, just in sense of, do we know, like, have some reasoning behind it?
That's mainly because of the requirements that we had for staffing during that time. And so we weren't receiving any fees for that area. And so, but we were still being required to pay some of those people there. So that's why you're seeing the deficit.
As far, what kind of programming are we talking for school? I mean, is this?
Well, you know, we got interrupted in the middle of that, you know, of their semester or whatever. So they were refunding. Okay. They were refunding fees.
Okay.
Trying to continue to pay some of the staff for school readiness.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out what aligns, you know, like regular community ed, is that where kids go, like after school day, that kind, and then, you know, early childhood classes, and school readiness, where I was just trying to figure out programmably, like, where does that fall, you know, with doing that kind of program?
There's all kinds of community ed school readiness programs that we offer to children 3 to 5.
Okay, so it's all preparatory, kind of, that we would offer through, you know, classes that people could, you know, pay for and reduce fees and that kind of stuff. So it's all during the day or at night, kind of community ed for 3 to 5 years old. Okay, I just wanted to kind of program you with. Okay, thank you.
Mary?
Julie, based upon the estimated balance of where we are for 2020 on June 30th, do you expect that to remain somewhat consistent now, given the reductions and changes in scheduling going into 2021? Or do you have an estimate for 2021?
I think we'll go back to where we've been in the past for 2021 for community education. Does that answer your question? Is that what you're looking for?
Yes, that was what I was looking for. And does this include next year, but not this year? How is that happening?
Can you repeat that for me? I'm sorry.
The summer programming, does it include the summer programming also? Or, because I know Stacy asked about the after school care and things like that. And what I think the summer programming this year was greatly reduced. Is it on again for next year?
Well, summer programming, our fiscal year is July 1st to June 30th. So what you're seeing for the current year is just solely through June 30th. You know, most of our summer programming happened for community ed last summer. And so that's why you're seeing it this way. And then we anticipate that we're going to ramp up our community ed programming starting July 1st as well. So we're continuing to see, we're looking at kind of returning to an original budget, maybe a little bit modified for community education, but we're looking at returning to having quite a few classes, just some modifications with that.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Roll call. Jonathan?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Stacy?
Aye.
Enrique?
Aye.
That motion carries 6-0. Preliminary budget approval?
Good evening again. We will start with this is very similar to what we talked about at the last work session. Our mission statement and how we process our budget is based on our strategic directions. Our enrollment as of 6/1, and you can see that it has increased since our last work session by about 20 kids, and it's mainly at our upper levels again. We talk a little bit about open enrollment in those 30 students in the upper levels, and we have reached that at 6th grade right now for open enrolled at our 6th grade level for 30 students. So we actually have 31 open enrolled in 6th grade because we are utilizing that so 90 students total that we could have at our middle level. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of update there. So that's where we're mainly seeing that increase. It's not so much at our elementary level at this point. Our kindergarten is at 586. A lot of school districts are really watching their kindergarten simply because if people decide to, with everything happening with the coronavirus, that they may keep their kindergarten students back another year. We're at 586. Last year we were at 600 students. So we're close to where we started this current year at. So we'll see what happens this summer with everything that's going on and however we decide or we can open schools in the fall with some guidance here. So that's where we're at with enrollment for the current year, or for next year, I should say. And as we move on, kind of going back to our estimated revenue budget, and that really hasn't changed at $3,873,000. Martha, I think you can move there you go. And then for our expenditures, that really hasn't changed since our last discussion as well. So that increase in expenditures is at $2.6 million. We did talk a little bit about our capital expenditures at the last meeting. So we have some additional expenditures for long-term facility maintenance at $1.2 million and some additional capital expenditures, $284,000. And those are both mainly due to the construction projects that are happening in our district. So that's an increase in expenditures, but these are restricted funds, as you recall. And I want to make sure that people understand that this money can only be used for these purposes, for long-term facility maintenance and for capital. And so it is a little bit different than our general fund unassigned dollars. And so these funds are specific for these purposes. So that's $1.5 million that will be spent in these areas on these restricted funds. So as we move to our fund balance and are talking about where we're at for the district, you can see that our district is right at that 10% fund balance in our general fund. We look at that total under A to determine what that what our unassigned, what our fund balance percentage will be by taking that, we should look at that $9.8 million and dividing it by the $98 million or $109 million really of expenditures. And so that's where we get our 10% there. So we're doing fairly well with keeping our fund balance between our 8 and 12% in our fund balance policy. With everything that's happening at the legislature, and sounds like they're going to reconvene in a special session, I'm hoping that our district will continue to see that 2% increase for next year, and there won't be any changes to that. And we're definitely basing our budget on that 2% increase in revenue. from the state. And I know that they are seeing some large deficit spending there. I'm anticipating as we look forward that we'll be looking through some of these areas and making sure that we're looking at how will that affect the districts in the future. I'm certainly looking at if the district will shift our state aids and levies again so that they can balance their budget. And they usually do that to school districts so that because they're on a cash basis and we're on a fund balance basis. So they shift the money so that it appears that we will eventually receive it, but it just won't be in that year. It does hurt districts in terms of cash flow. And so that means that if we have money enough to make it through without having to borrow money, if we have enough money in our fund balance so that we're not having to borrow money to make our payroll and make our monthly expenses, that's really important for our school district because it's expensive to borrow that money. And so I think that's a really positive thing to have this fund balance at this time. As we move on to the community education and other funds, all of those as well. Our food service certainly made it through this last couple of months. They are in a positive area as well. They are spending down their fund balance because they are purchasing items for the new spaces that they will have come this fall in those kitchens, and particularly at the high school and Hamilton Ridge and Ola del Lago at Greenwood. And then community education, you can see, as we talked a little bit about earlier, that funding or that programming appears to be back to where it has been in the past. And we're anticipating some increases in fees in that area, but some increase also in their fund balance by the end of next year. You can see that we're spending down our construction fund to nothing. I'm hoping that's where we're at by the end of next year. That means all of our punch lists and all of those details for this year will be completed for our construction fund. And then the rest, the debt service fund, our custodial fund, that's for fundraisers, for student activities, our internal service fund, which includes our health and dental self-insured funds, and then our OPEB, our revocable trust. They're all in a very positive manner at the end of, are anticipated to be at the end of next year. And then some talk about budget impact due to executive orders. We've talked somewhat about this, some cost savings that we've had. I've also had the opportunity today, which isn't in this packet, to sit in on a webinar today, just to, coming out with what they're calling the the Governor's Emergency Education Relief Fund. So it's called GEER, G-E-E-R, and ESSER, which is Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, which comes from the federal government. So the GEER is a state relief fund, and the ESSER is a federal relief fund. The district is anticipated to get about $432,000 of those funds. There's about $78,000 from the GEER fund that can be spent specifically on summer school, technology, and transportation. And the ESSER fund, that for Prior Lake Savage schools would be about $184,000, and that can be spent on local needs. And there are some requirements for that as well. And then the remaining $170,000 that the district would receive is based on I have summer school, mental health, and underserved populations is where we need to spend that $170,000. And the money that we're receiving is based on our October 1, 2019 free and reduced lunch price applications. And so you'll see that we are getting $432,000, or if we get the grant portion, the $170,000, that is a grant. Actually, all of them we have to make an application for in order to receive the funds. And then it can be spent until, I want to say June 30th of 2022. And we have to apply for these funds by next May of 2021. And so it would be in next year's budget or possibly in the following year's budget. Those expenses, we can start looking at our expenses, any expenses we've had since March 13th of 2020. And so we're going to start looking at that and seeing how we can, if there's some things that we can be reimbursed for such things as hotspots and those types of things for the district. And what's the best way to manage these funds and how to utilize them in the most cost-effective way and to those populations that are underserved and that we need some help in that area. And so we'll be looking at this over the next couple of months and seeing what the best way to utilize these funds will be. But that is not included because I just received that today. And so that's not included in this information for the board, but it would be in on the final budget allocation in December. So any questions about any of the budget information I gave you tonight?
Are there any questions from the board? Mary? Mary?
So I've got two questions. First of all is, Julie, can you approximate if they did go down the year following to 1%, what the financial dollars would be versus a 2%?
It's about $600,000.
Okay. And then with the grant for underserved populations, et cetera, you know, we are short paras and counselors. Is there a way to classify this, or how would you class that particular one? Like, what account would you use? Are they going to come up with another one? And how does that work?
Well, this is one-time fund. Very rarely do we, as a district, hire people based on just receiving funds for 1 year. And so it's going to be trying to make sure that they have the right technology. They're getting the correct, our children and our students are getting the correct mental health needs that they have. We haven't really discussed how we're going to utilize all these funds. And this is just the very preliminary information that we received today. And so I really don't know if I have the in-depth answers to give to you tonight, Mary, but we'll be getting more information over the next couple of months on how best to utilize these funds.
Okay, this was, you got to prove you used it in a certain area, and it seems kind of, I know that would be a challenge accounting wise to report that back up. So I'm not, you know, it sounds a little, I like it, but it does sound hard to prove, and please keep us posted.
I will.
Any other questions? Stacey?
Just one question, kind of to what Mary was alluding to, the 1%. So, Julie, I just want to know on a timing from that. The only time that they would decide to possibly change that, or we would find out about that, would be during the special session. I mean, could they still do it? They couldn't do it next year, right? I mean, like if they couldn't. Okay, so it'd only be with special sessions, right?
I would think it would only be through special session. You know, it's never happened before, and so
right.
It could. I
okay.
say
But
that
it's normally, when they've done this in the past, it's always like we've gotten enough of a heads up that we can adjust, or okay. I just didn't know
shifting of the money
call back in and, you know, next year or whatever, you know, later, and then we get, oh, we're going to switch our minds, you know. We usually get
about the shifting. Is that what you're talking
yes,
about?
I'm talking about the shifting. Yeah, if they decide, yes.
It's usually in a special session.
Okay, all right. If we escape it, I just want to, you know, if we get through the special session, at least we can be on solid ground for the next whatever.
Right.
Okay.
Any other questions? Jonathan?
Julie, quickly about enrollment. I know that once we start the year, we typically, you know, we have a loss. What is the typical trend over the course of the summer from where we are today? And I know this is a weird year, but from where we are today, do you expect it to be somewhere close to where we are right now? A few more added?
in a typical year, we would get quite a few more students added, starting at the end of July through the first couple of weeks of August. We always see a big influx. I would say the last 2 weeks of July it kind of starts to ramp up, and the first 2 weeks of August, kind of when the stores start seeing the back to school sales. Then we start seeing a little bit of a jump in our registrations at that time, and people coming in to register their students or online enrollments as well. And so, you know, it's hard to say this year. I'd expect that we would continue to see that, but it's just hard to say.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Stacy?
One follow-up question on that I just want to make sure if I'm with our projections and everything. So on the enrolled and then the budgeted amount, it's 50 difference. So the budgeted amount was an additional 125 from this year, correct?
That is correct.
So we're up 175 currently.
Right now we are, but and you know, I'm always very cautious about that because we typically lose about 75 students, but we, you know, and that starts at October 1st. But we always lose a few high school students too, or those secondary students that we just don't know if they're going to be attending. They don't tell us they're leaving. You know, our elementary students and parents are really good about letting us know that they're leaving, but our high school just don't. And so we usually start the year, especially the first day, a couple days or first week of school, a lot higher. And we lose about 30 kids at the high school level. I'm not saying we lose them, but they've moved. We just haven't notified us. And so as we start school, it's really that we lose those 75 kids starting pretty much as of the October 1 numbers. So I like to see that where we're at right now, it's very positive.
No, I think that was good. I mean, we kind of were conservative, but then in the same sense, we made it and still have a little wiggle room for whatever might happen. And considering the times, I think that's pretty good.
Right. I was pleasantly surprised to see we have an increase in our enrollment, especially considering the times that we're in right now.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, do I have a motion to approve the 2021 preliminary budget?
So made.
By Stacy, second.
Second.
Jonathan, any further comments or questions? Okay, seeing none. Jonathan?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Stacy?
Aye.
Enrique?
Aye.
That motion carries 6-0. Julie, you have the transportation contract too.
I do. This was an interesting year, and as things progressed, we had a very productive conversations with the Prior Lake School Bus Association and the owners. They were very great to work with us. They always are. And we've come to an agreement to increase by 2% in next year and 1% the following year. And due to some unknown, we just don't know what will happen in years 3 and 4. We've agreed to renegotiate those once we know what our funding will be at that point. So if we're continue to have no funding or very little funding, they will work with us to, instead of trying to put a number in there right now, they agreed to work with us during that time to renegotiate years 3 and 4 in our agreement. And that's really the only thing that changed in our contract was the amount. And the other thing is that we agreed to suspend the contractor fuel reimbursement for the next 2 years as well. So in the past, if there was any fuel savings or the district saw fuel savings when the prices went below $2, they reimbursed the district for that. And that actually hasn't happened very often, if at all. But we agreed to suspend that at this time just to help them, as well as it's very little money for the district. And so we felt that this was a good negotiating point at this time as well.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the transportation contract for would it be 2020 to 2022 or 24 then?
It'd be 24, but we would just reopen it to negotiate those next 2 years.
Okay. Do I have a motion for that?
So moved.
By Michael. Second?
Second.
Enrique? I'm not sure who said that. Any comments or questions? Terry?
I'd just like to echo my my thanks. First of all, my thanks to Julie and Jim for working through this contract, but also just the gratitude to our bus company, our owners, and our transportation staff. You know, they also helped us in very different ways during the COVID-19 and did a tremendous job of collaborating with our operations staff and our child nutrition services staff to deliver thousands and thousands of meals to our children and our families. So just want to thank them and thank Julie and Jim again for their work with this.
Okay, I think Stacy, did you have your hand up first?
Yeah, I was just going to kind of echo that, but just I know that when we had started talking about the contract, it looked a lot different as far as percentages and things like that. So I just wanted to give my thanks to the bus owners and for their willingness to really work with us, and Maureen and Jim and Julie for, you know, making it a really fair deal, I think, for everybody.
Mary?
Again, I'd like to echo the hard work by the transportation staff and Jim and everyone who worked on this contract. I do have one question. Are we still suffering a shortage in school bus drivers?
This is Jim. Mary, we haven't since COVID started, I can tell you that. It's a struggle for them all the time, but the higher the unemployment, the better the owners are to be able to get drivers. They've never let us down, no matter how tough it's been, but they do struggle.
Any other comments or questions? I'd just like to say thanks to and echo what's been said before. So appreciate that. I have a motion and a second. So Jonathan?
Aye.
Mary? Mary?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Stacy?
Aye.
Enrique?
Aye.
And that motion carries 6-0. Thanks, Julie. Move on to the annual lead and water management plan report. And I believe this is Maureen.
Yes. Yes. Good evening, Chair Shimmick, Dr. Salo, members of the board. I'm just doing our annual lead and water management plan update. We are not due for another round of testing until October of 2021. We're required to do it every 5 years. Our last round was in 2016. We sample, last round we did 1,021 samples at our buildings. It'll be more this year because we have more buildings. Out of those 1,021 samples, only 25 of them were over 20 parts per billion. Those were primarily in science sinks. So they weren't our drinking fountains. In every case, we replaced the fixtures. We currently have no action required for any elevated levels anywhere in our district. 2021 is when we're scheduled for our next round. Any questions on any?
Are there any questions from the board? Michael?
I just have a quick one, and I have a feeling it's just that faucets were replaced. I noticed on Hidden Oaks, there was no action listed, but that you had 14 samples. I'm guessing that those were actually like replaced faucets like all the other ones and just not in there.
That is correct, yes.
Thank you. Thanks.
Any other questions? Mary?
Really quick, Maureen, just is the primary reason for the lead the faucets now because most of us are not on lead pipes or on PVC and all that, or what is the actual root cause when the lead levels do elevate or decrease?
Yeah, sure. Well, typically it's the fixture itself, so it's the faucet, the connection, the whether it's the fitting itself. So they're still manufactured in lead, whether it's the faucets or the handles themselves. So the reason that we find that we get them in the science sinks is that they're not used that frequently. And when the water sits in the lines for a period of time, it leaches the water out of those fittings. So if they were a faucet where someone washed their hands several times a day, they would probably not be fixtures. But in an abundance of caution and just to make sure we replace the fixtures.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Okay. Thanks, Maureen. Thanks for keeping us safe. This does not require board action this evening. Moving on to the district operational and priority work, Dr. Stallo.
Thank you very much. Again, good evening, everyone. As part of our district system of continuous improvement, you are a part of our work all year as we bring to you updates on our district goals and priority work as part of your role in governance in your oversight of our operations. So you'll see that what we do is throughout the year, we provide updates, and we've got teams around each of these areas of work. And then as an administrative team, in April and May, we take a look to really look at, what of that work has been accomplished, what is the next level of work, and then what is on the horizon that we want to continue to study and research as we continue to work to achieve our mission for all students. So this evening, I am bringing forward the priority work recommendation and district goal recommendation for 2020-21. We did discuss this at the May study session. And I know the only question that we had at that time was, especially in that strategic direction number 3, we don't have a specific goal area called out in innovation. And what the leaders, what we talked about at that point is that we really want to be sure that we're embedding innovation in everything. So it might be more of a tracking year and how we do that instead of just one particular thing that we're looking at. I do know that as we work on planning this summer to determine how to return our students back to school, there will be a lot of innovative planning with that. And we'll also continue, I think, as we look at implementing BAR at the high school and continuing to look at MinCaps and ways that we can open up more pathways, especially in the area of trades. That'll be a focus in innovation. And as we're opening so many new spaces next fall, we'll be looking at our continued work, especially around strategic direction number 1 with personalized learning and innovative learning. So with that, happy to answer any questions, and otherwise I would request approval by the board on this recommendation for these district priorities.
I'll take a motion first to approve the district operational and priority work for 2021.
So made.
By Stacy, second.
Second.
By Michael. Now, if you have questions. Anyone have questions? Mary?
Well, I'm glad you addressed strategic direction number 3, because that was kind of confusing with with nothing underneath it. And I've got a 2-part question, by the way, Terry. Is there a date or time where we're going to have some measurable bullets underneath strategic direction 3? Is there a time frame you have in mind?
No, that's not the recommendation that's coming forward tonight, is that we wouldn't be adding anything to that. I think it'll be more of a, as we look at the progress and the work that's been done at the end of the year. But right now, as a team, there wasn't a specific area, in the past when we've started new programming, or even the year that we did the idea deck, there's some work that came out of that we haven't completed. So at this point, we weren't planning on adding any more specifics in terms of forecasting that. And instead, I think it'll be reporting back to you some of those things, especially if we can get that trades pathway going at MinCaps and some of those other things.
Okay, and kind of the same question with strategic direction number 4, because we've been an eSTEM district for some time. Is there anything that's going to be added to that to be a little bit more prescriptive? We understand what that direction is?
Yeah, what we did last year, and this is one of the things that we do every time, when we come around and share that with you. But one of the work of this year was really recommitting to that. While we've been in E-STEM district, I think there was definitely a feeling that, especially around sustainability and recycling, that really was the district goal this past year. So ensuring that we have deeply implemented that. So again, that's embedded in our work. And then continuing through curriculum review to continue to look at how are we embedding. I think we feel better. We feel like we have a stronger integration of curriculum at the elementary level than we do at the middle level and high school. So that's really been one of our focus areas in teaching and learning in the last couple of years as well.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Jonathan?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Stacy?
Aye.
Enrique?
Aye.
That motion carries 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is the approval of the resolution establishing dates for filing affidavits of candidacy. Dr. Stallo.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Because we do have school board election in November, and because we need to ensure that we have this resolution approved in time for us to do all the advertising in the newspaper according to the timelines. We needed to bring this to you tonight. The July meeting would have been too late for that. So this evening, we just are requesting the approval on the resolution establishing the dates for filing affidavits for our candidacy. You can see there that the filing dates begin on July 28th and will close on August 11th. And as I said, by you approving this evening, that allows us to ensure that we meet all of the deadlines for advertising that we need to moving forward. So with that, I will just seek your approval.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the resolution for filing for affidavits for candidacy? By Jonathan, second by Enrique. Any comments or questions? Okay, seeing none. Jonathan?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Stacy?
Aye.
Enrique?
Aye.
And that motion carries 6-0. Thank you. Moving on.
Early.
I'm sorry.
File early.
Well, as long as it's not often, right? Okay, moving on to the superintendent yearly evaluation public statement. The school board held a closed session for superintendent evaluation on May 18th, 2020. We also filled out an evaluation on SurveyMonkey previous to that and had good discussion that evening. And I will now read the public statement that will, for the evaluation of Dr. Stallo. The evaluation of Superintendent Dr. Terry Stallo was held on Monday, May 18th, 2020. All members of the school board were present in a virtual setting for the assessment discussion with the exception of Enrique Velazquez. All areas of Dr. Stallo's job duties and responsibilities, operational plan, and priority work based on the district's mission and strategic plan were reviewed by the board. Further discussion included her leadership as we navigate through the global pandemic. Dr. Stallo's shared leadership model enables her administration to take an active, hands-on approach when addressing the challenges and opportunities in our district. She continues to communicate a clear vision for the benefit of all students and staff. She challenges her staff to innovate and support individualized student learning. The district's mission and strategic plan is consistently at the forefront of all decisions and direction taken by Dr. Stallo. Dr. Stallo has led the district through many challenging events this past year, beginning with the construction projects at all of our district building sites, elementary attendance boundary changes, budget adjustments, distance learning, and the associated requirements of COVID-19. Dr. Stallo's initiatives, included in the operational plan and priority work, has successfully positioned our staff and students to better achieve the requirements of distance learning. Dr. Stallo has been recognized and nominated to serve on various local and state level panels, councils, and organizations. Most recently, she has been nominated to apply as a school superintendent representative on the Minnesota School Board Administrators, of the School Board Administrators, with the final decision made by Governor Walz. She has also been nominated as president-elect for the Minnesota Association of School Administrators, MASA. She serves on the executive boards of C and AMSD, both educational support organizations in Minnesota. On a more local level, she is working with the Executive Council of the Midwakaton Sioux community on educational initiatives. She is representing Scale on panel discussions. She has given presentations at Optimist, Chambers of Commerce, and is a member of the Prior Lake Rotary. Her visibility in our schools and community is outstanding. She has developed effective channels of communication with the school board, staff, and community. She models a professional, ethical standard of integrity. Though our perspectives are varied, we as a board believe that she has met or exceeded expectations in her duties as superintendent of Prior Lake Savage Area Schools, and we will continue to hold Dr. Stallo to the highest standards for the leadership of District 719. We applaud her commitment to our district and will continue to support her initiatives in concert with the Prior Lake Savage Area School Board. Thank you for your dedication and continued leadership as we navigate through these uncertain times. That does not require board action at this time, so we will move on to policy. These are actually policies that were presented to us at a previous work session. And we'll start with the first policy, 514, on student wellness. Did anyone have any questions? I don't believe there was any changes from the last presentation of this policy. Any comments? Mary?
Just for the viewing public, clarify, and I bet we're just pretty much putting in the stuff we've already been doing. We're just formalizing the process with the USDA and the state reimbursable school meal programs and the two other.
Mary, I'm sorry. I don't know if it's just me or not, but you're breaking up when you're speaking, and I missed a lot of what you said. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I don't know if I was going in or out. Sorry about that. I just said that for clarification, because it looks like this policy, I did ask at the study session if this was new or if this was just a formalization of things we're already doing with the acts and with the USDA guidelines for the elementary school kids. Other than formalizing the language in here, we're not really making any changes to anything we're currently doing for policy. That's the way I understood it, and that's so I don't have any questions. I was just clarifying that.
Yes, thank you for that. It is a clarification and a confirmation of what is actually happening, but now it's on paper in the policy. So, yep, you're right. Does anyone else have any other questions? Okay, then we will bring this back again at our next session in July. The next policy is 531, memorials for deceased students or staff. This was also presented at the work session, and I don't believe any suggestions were made for changes on it. Does anyone have any comments or questions or any other thoughts on it? Okay, then we'll move on to policy 201, school board vacancies. You asked a question on this one. 201.1 school board vacancies is a state statute. You asked that I call MSBA and ask them a little bit more about that. You also have the state statute in your board packet tonight to make a comparison. MSBA does not have a policy on board vacancies. They don't feel that there's a reason that you have to have one. They don't need it, or they don't feel we need it. The only comment that the lawyer did say from MSBA is that it doesn't hurt to have it if we want to keep it. It can make it easier for the public if they would so choose to look at school board vacancies and see how we handle those. So it would be a convenience for the public, but they do not feel we need it. That was the remarks from them that you had asked me to check on. So does anyone else have any other comments about it? Mary?
Well, I'm the one that or the clarification mostly. This is about 99% towards state statute, because I did read it after you released the statute. And I'm wondering if, therefore, just I don't mind having the policy, but should we to the state statute so that when the statute changes, we're automatically in compliance? And 99% is just for a little bit different on the vacancy, but it's not a lot. And that's instead of just regurgitating any amendments that may come in, because they have in, should we just put a hyperlink to the statute?
I guess we could do that, although our practice has never been to connect a statute on our policies because the statute numbers changed. And that was a recommendation from the MSBA. So I don't care one way or the other. It's just not something that we've done as past practice, according to MSBA's recommendation.
Well, the major statute numbers don't change, just the amendments to them that are embedded within it. And I think the biggest difference here is
Mary, sorry, I can't hear you again.
Mary, I'm sorry, I got to stay clear because I do have it turned down. The biggest difference is just some minor language in a board vacancy and the definition of a vacancy, because they're very somewhat detailed on the definition of the vacancy, and we same but not exact. Would trump this? If it would statute trump our policy, or policy trump the statute? How do we know, or how does that work?
The statute is the law. We would have to go with the statute.
Okay, slightly different than what the statute says. It's really what the statute says then.
Right, we would follow state statute. The only reason he said you can keep the policy is because we have one. It follows state statute, and it would be a convenience for the public if they were looking up a policy versus a statute. That was his opinion. He also said we didn't need it. So it's up to the board if we want to continue with it or not. Michael?
You know, I don't feel real strongly one way or the other, except for the point you made that it makes it easy for the public to just look at the policy and see what they are. Does it do anything for, you know, transparency's sake with the public, just to have it front and center with everything else, or is that redundant? Because I do like that, you know, if that's where the first place they're going to go look, if there's ever a vacancy or a question or any feelings in the community about what is happening with replacing a board member.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it would be, you know, more transparent. Maybe, you know, to Mary's point, maybe we put in here, this is according to state statute, and not put the number, but that it is a statute and this is what we follow. Yes, it is a repetition, but there is a convenience factor. Stacy?
I think the only thing, you know, when this will be an issue is if we have a vacancy, obviously. And so I think at that time, I guess I don't have really a preference either way. My only concern would be this, is if we've written it in such a way, or we have something that's not per state statute on there, and then we go to use it, and then the public sees that what it is, and then we do something different because it's not in compliance with state statute. So I think if there's a way to write something that's somewhat vague, that references, I mean, I don't know. I just think you don't want to go down the road of, hey, we put this all in here and then we need it, and oh, guess what? It's not in compliance, and so we're going to do something else, not what our policy says, because then you're going to achieve the opposite of what you want, which is transparency, and they're going to think something's funny. So I just think we need to be aware of that.
Okay, good point. Jonathan?
You know, like everybody else, not super strong feelings about it.
I think Stacy's point is valid, though, that if you're trying to be transparent and it winds up backfiring, looking like you're doing something different, that's potentially a negative. I think if there were a way to incorporate a statement, something to the effect of this policy is based upon state statute, and state statute shall take precedence in any if there's any differentiation. Any difference between the policy and the statute wins, or something to that effect. Could just be written into it if we're going to keep it. Stacy, you just gave me really the first strong argument that I would say for taking it out, or just simply stating school board vacancies will be filled in compliance with state statute, and the rest of it is just left off too.
I would agree to that. I think it's the simplest and cleanest.
I agree to what Jonathan said too.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is we get rid of the whole policy, but we get rid of the writing on the policy, but we refer to the state statute when and if we need to do this, but the policy would stay just saying that. Is that what you want? Jonathan, could you repeat what you said?
Yeah, I think you keep school board vacancies, you keep the purpose, and then you simply reference process for filling board vacancies is contained in state statute, which will be followed in the event of any vacancy. I think I said it better the first time.
Yeah, you did. That's why I was making you repeat it. Wordsmith, I think I know what you mean. I'll bring that back at the next meeting unless there's more discussion.
The good thing about these meetings is the one time I said something that made sense, it was recorded, so we can go back to it.
That's right. That's right. Okay. Then moving on to policy 215, school board use of electronic communications. Again, you wanted me to check with MSBA. They do not have a policy on this. Their reason is that direction is given in phase 3 and phase 4. So they do not feel it is necessary to have this policy. And his comment, the lawyer's comment, was that it may have been a response to a specific situation that the board had experienced in the past. And he seemed to think we could surely keep it if we want, but it's not necessary. That was the best answer I got. So does anyone have any comments on whether they want to keep this policy in place or not? Or just keep it as is?
I would vote to keep it as is. I think it's just a good checks and balance, just a, awareness. And it's also, I would say, from the public standpoint, giving them some idea of, we can't always engage in everything in a normal platform, and, and that we're speaking as a board member. So I think it's good awareness too for us and the public.
Okay. Mary?
I don't mind it staying in there. I would, per the last conversation, A and B do overlap with the open meeting law, and maybe a reference to that. This isn't just a statement of policy, that's also actually statute.
I guess I'm not following you.
Well, we're not supposed to use electronic communications as a substitute for public deliberations. That's if you do a chain text or an email, that is in violation of the open meeting law.
Right.
And the same thing with the use of attachments perceived or used, outside of the public deliberation, and that they have to be regarded as public records. That's also referenced in the open meeting law. And it's just, we don't have to state the open meeting law, but maybe adding that in there to say, hey, we're not just doing this to say that it's our particular policy. Some of this is actually statutory.
So what you're saying is you'd like a reference to the open meeting law statute?
Yes.
Okay. Jonathan?
I think this one could be solved easily just by adding at the beginning of the paragraph, consistent with open meeting laws, and let the rest of it rip.
Right at the beginning.
Yeah. I also think, selfishly speaking, as board member, I have used this policy a couple of times to explain to members of the community why I did not respond to them when they texted me during meetings.
Okay.
It's policy.
Okay, I don't know if Martha's listening, but I'll talk to her about getting this wordsmithed, and we'll bring it back to the board. Is there any other comments or discussion on it? Okay. These will come back again. Next on our agenda is the school board annual policy review. We have a whole bunch of them. And to my knowledge, there's only a couple of places where there was any change from last year. I'll mention the changes, and if someone has a specific policy they'd like to talk to, I guess I'd rather do it that way than go through each policy, if that's okay with the board. 419, tobacco-free environment. MSBA added a sentence, and it is highlighted in your board packet. That was one change. Then the wellness policy is referenced. It usually would be an annual review or approval, but we're in the process of doing that, so it's not exactly in with this group this time. And then a little more discussion in the 600 series in 603 and 616. We refer to the membership of the curriculum committee, and we say one board member. And I know we had some discussion about changing that. And right now we're not in compliance because I believe we have 2 board members on the curriculum committee. So we do need to address that membership statement. And I don't know, Mary?
Hold on. So when you say we're not in compliance, are we not in compliance with the MSBA recommended policy? Or or is there some other way we're not in compliance? Because I mean, I understand what you mean by currently our policy is written this way, but there's a lot of these are kind of up to us, right? Except for the ones that are backed by statute. Or is there something I'm missing? I'm just in general.
No, I'm referring to the fact that our policy, Prior Lake Savage policy on curriculum, talks about membership in the curriculum committee, and we're saying one board member, and that's not what we're doing. So if we're not going to do that, then let's say what we're going to do. I mean, let's be in compliant with the policy that we wrote.
Okay, I was just clarifying. Thank you.
Yep. Does anyone have any other comments on any of the other policies? Okay, so then I'm going to bring it back to this membership policy on curriculum with 603 and 616. How would you like to go forward with that? Stacy?
Well, how are we? I almost want to look at the school board policy committee. Didn't we kind of say we were going to leave it up to the chair or flex or something like that? I mean, didn't we kind of say that? So can we word it the same way?
When we talked about, yes, we could. When we talked about changing a membership in a committee, and it was specifically curriculum, we talked about it being something in the fall with the board chair and figuring out, who goes where. But my point in this is that we say one member and we don't have one member. And the other part of this on policy 603, turn to policy 603, District Curriculum Advisory Committee. We also have a statement in here, and I believe this is statute, Mary. It says, whenever possible, parents and other community residents shall comprise at least 2/3 advisory committee members. So as we increase board members, we have to keep that ratio in mind. And off the top of my head, I don't know what that number of committee members is right now from the community.
that's a good point, Lee. This is Mary, because I think we only have 2, maybe 3 in that curriculum meeting right now. But I'd like to, in general, for some of our committees, how does that apply? Does that only apply to one, or does it apply to all the committees that are open to the public too?
Well, this policy is an annually reviewed, and it's referring all to curriculum. So
okay,
other committees, we'd have to take those separately, and I don't believe that they have as strict of a policy as curriculum does.
So was your original question, how do you want to deal with this? Do you just want to make the changes and then bring it up like the other policies like we have done for review and comment? And
yeah, okay. I would like to get input from the rest of the board. We have 2 people from the board on this membership, and our policy says 1. So we first need to address that, how we want that worded. And then I think I'm just cautioning us that we're supposed to keep at least 2/3 of the advisory committee being community residents.
And I don't think we're in compliance with that at all. So we definitely need to bring up this policy like we have the other policies and actually discuss it, because it sounds like we either have, like you said, a compliance with our current policy, but potential other changes once we review it as a board. So I would like to bring that forward in the same method that we have brought the other policies forward for renew and approval. And I'm not quite sure what the timing is on that, but that definitely, I believe that definitely needs to happen.
Michael?
I apologize, I'm off topic. I have to sign off. My dad was just taken to the emergency room. Would it be appropriate for me to sign off early?
Yes, go.
Okay, thank you.
Good luck. Jonathan, did you have?
Yeah, I'm looking at the full policy. It is interesting because it does, you see the 2/3 as members of the community, but the membership clause here states that it should have an elementary principal, secondary principal, or assistant, and the director of teaching and learning, parent or community representatives. There's not a number. It does say 1 board member. I think that's easily changed. We could just simply say 1 to 3, because we certainly can't have more than 3 on a committee, because then we have a quorum. So I think we could just say 1 to 3 board members, teacher representatives from each level, and a student representative. If you have all of those representatives from the district, you need to have about 20 community members to make up 2/3 of the committee. So I would submit that perhaps the 2/3 is the number that should be changed. I think we still want community members. We absolutely want community members on, but we're either going to reduce the number of district staff on that committee, or we're going to make it a really big committee if we want 2/3 to be community members.
And I would agree, Jonathan, but if my memory serves correctly, this committee was kind of formed as a response to an issue many years ago in Prior Lake anyway, Prior Lake Savage. But the 2/3, I thought was part of a statute, a state statute, so that the community was being represented with the curriculum in the schools. I'm not positive of that, if that still exists anymore, but I know way back that was part of a statute. So I guess maybe Jeff can help us. I can see he's here now. Otherwise, I guess I would suggest that 603 and 616 do come back after maybe the curriculum group looks at it and we have a better idea of what we're talking about, rather than kind of second guessing everything. Similar to what Mary had suggested, I believe is what she wanted. If the rest of the board is in agreement with that. Stacy?
Yeah, I think, I mean, these are all good questions that obviously need to be looked at. And I think, because this has to be reviewed annually, I mean, wouldn't we still want to approve it as is, but then give direction that the curriculum committee should look at this, you know, as soon as they can and bring it back to us for further study? I mean, doesn't it have to be gone through? I mean, doesn't it have to be approved in July?
The curriculum committee roster is approved every year, either at the September or October board meeting.
Not the roster. I'm talking the policy, because it's a it's the list of the policy. It's the list of the policies right now. We approve them every July. I think Martha, well, she knew.
Stacy, I understand what you're saying, but then, you know, we're going through the wellness policy as well, and we're not going to be approving that tonight either. So if we want to be consistent, then I would take 514, 603, and 616 off of this approval. And the comment, I guess, would be with the caveat that, you know, if there are policies that are in process of being reviewed.
So it's okay. I thought we had to approve them by a certain period of time. Even if we knew we were going to make changes, they still had to be reviewed, just to say they'd been reviewed, and then we went forward. I thought that's how we'd done it in the past, but I could be wrong.
I guess I'll have to check on that, because then we're in violation with the wellness policy too, because we haven't approved that. We're in process of approving it, but we haven't approved it. Mary?
I just wouldn't feel comfortable approving a policy we're already not in compliance with just to meet a date. So I agree with Lee and with others. Let's just bring it up for review so we can get it approved by September. And if we start the process now, I think we're still in good hands, aren't we, Lee? If we send it back to the curriculum committee and have them work on it and get it to us by the next study session?
Yeah, I would think so. If not the next study session, the next board meeting in July. Is that the direction the rest of the board wants to go in?
I don't believe the curriculum committee has any other meeting scheduled, so I'll have to work with Dr. Schuttinger. I don't know if we can meet the timelines that you're discussing this evening, is my point.
I understand that, Jeff, but a lot of this comes not necessarily from the committee, of the curriculum committee itself, but from those in charge of that committee. Like some of our other policies don't really go to a whole committee. So I would appreciate it if, you know, Dr. Schuttinger, yourself, and whoever else needs to be involved would be able to look at it.
For sure. We can certainly do that.
Okay. All right. And the rest of the board's okay with that? Okay, so I have one other caveat with all of this tonight. We just approved a policy 208, which is the policy on policies, and it says that we review the policies basically 4 times. I am going to ask permission that we either put a note in that policy that the annual policies do not need to be brought back 4 times for approval, that coming back now in June, that we would be able to approve the rest of these policies at our July meeting. Does anyone have any comments or concerns about that? Mary?
I don't have any concerns about it. I just these over so we're familiar with them, just in case there's any gotchas. I'll make sure so we can expedite the process.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. So these policies will come back in July, with the exception of 603 and 616 will not be on this list. We will be working through that policy as well as the wellness one. Okay. So now we'll move on to policy 213, school board committees. This has gone through all of our processes and been presented a number of times. It's policy 213, school board committees. Does anyone have any comments or questions before we take a vote? Okay, seeing none. Do I have a motion to approve the school board committee's policy 213?
So made.
By Stacy, second. By Jonathan?
Second.
Any comments or questions? Jonathan?
You looking for a vote?
For a vote, I'm sorry, yes.
Yes, aye.
Mary?
Yay.
Stacy?
Yes.
Enrique?
Aye.
And that motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Moving on to administrative reports, Dr. Stallo.
Thank you very much. At Prior Lake Savage Area Schools, our mission is to educate all learners to reach their full potential as contributing and productive members of our ever-changing global community. And tonight, I just want to update you with some of the work that we've been engaged as we constantly seek to ensure that that mission comes to life for all of our students. To say that this has been a difficult end of the year would be an understatement. The coronavirus global pandemic, changing every system that we have to implement distance learning. The tragic death of George Floyd and the grief that has followed has left us feeling an outpouring of emotions. As our world and plans are constantly changing, I want to be sure that our students, our families, and our community know that Prior Lake Savage Area School stands against racism, violence, and discrimination in all forms, and that we will continue to pursue our journey of educational equity and continue to promote racial equity with all of our policies, procedures, and processes to create a school district where all feel safe, valued, and loved. Last week, while our middle school students were still in session, many teachers were able to connect, first of all, with each other and then with their students online to give them a space to begin to talk and process what they were feeling and what they've been experiencing. Today, Chair Shimmick and I had a chance to meet with the city leaders and police leaders of both Prior Lake and Savage to check in with each other and to talk a little bit about how we might be able to collaborate to support our communities. Moving forward, we'll look for ways to partner with our communities to lead positive changes within our schools and our cities, along with elevating student voices to discuss issues that are important to them, especially as they relate to race and inequities. Throughout these times, our teachers, our support staff, our administrators, and our parents have done amazing work educating students through distance learning, finding ways to continue to make personal connections with our students and making end of the year celebrations, though they were really different, really special. We're also working to ensure that we do get our summer programming up and running. We started summer school today and credit recovery at Bridges, ALC. Kids Company, as we talked about earlier in the meeting, will begin running on Wednesday. And we will begin to see some of our activities in athletics get started in the next couple of months. We have very tight guidance that we have worked on collectively to ensure that every plan that comes before us is aligned to our return to work, return to school, and return to play efforts following Minnesota Department of Health guidance. So I encourage everyone to look at our website to make sure that they stay up to date on our summer programming as well as facility use. So what will school look like in the fall? Well, we're not sure of that right now, and we won't know. MDE has made it very clear that they will most likely not be giving guidance until the end of July. So we know that a structure could be for in-person coming together for education, a continuation of distance learning, or a hybrid of the two. We have held focus groups with multiple stakeholder groups, and we're using that data as well as the data from an exit survey with our staff and 3 other surveys with students, parents, and staff throughout distance learning to make sure that we have as much input as possible as we begin to plan for all 3 of those scenarios so that we're ready for the fall. We'll continue this planning actually tomorrow. We have our administrative retreat, and I'm grateful for that. We will be in 4 different locations, and we'll be abiding by the 10-person rule. But I'm really excited to get a chance to see our admin and thank them for their unbelievable leadership during crisis over the last 2.5 months. What they have done and the hours that they've put in and the grace that they have shown is absolutely heroic, and I could not be more proud of them. We'll be prepared for our students as they return in the fall, regardless of what that looks like. So I want to thank you for your support. I want to thank our community for their support of our school districts, and all of our staff who did so much to deliver incredible education during really trying times this last year. And we look forward to what's ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any administrative reports?
I have none.
None this evening.
Okay. All right.
I don't have any.
Okay. Any board reports? Stacy?
I just wanted to touch on the Community Engagement Committee kind of met last week, kind of virtual and together kind of combination. And we just really kind of explored ways. It was something that we wanted to reach out before COVID. We got a little behind on it with the COVID thing. It kind of took a little side turn, but with all the events, you know, and the happenings with the death of George Floyd, we really thought we needed to refocus and engage our community, especially our communities of color. So the members, we just kind of all reached out to some people in our community that have reached out to us directly on our diversity work in the last, you know, year or so, and just make some connections with us. And so we're really looking at kind of having a small group discussion with the community engagement group with a few of these members, just to kind of give us some guidance for moving forward and just what they feel that they need from the district at this time. And then kind of continuing to have them as kind of some guiding partners as we move forward with the work. So it's just kind of in the beginning stages, but you know, Enrique, Michael and I are kind of really all wanting to move forward with this work, and Dr. Stallo as well. So we are starting those conversations, and we'll update you as we know more. It's really just really kind of in its infancy right now, but we want to have those discussions.
Any other board reports? Thanks, Stacy. Jonathan?
I'm pretty sure everybody's going to want to say this. I just want to thank everybody who helped put on the graduation, the drive up, and the stuff at, you know, the same at Bridges. I think it was really meaningful for those students and those families to get their moment. It was nice to be a part of it, and thank you to all who made sure our seniors had their moment.
Any other reports? A couple comments. I would like to recommend that we return to the boardroom for our board meetings in July. I talked to MSBA and found out that we certainly can return to the boardroom. We can social distance, and I also found out that we all need to be heard. We do not necessarily need to be seen. So those that are uncomfortable could be in a Google Meet. And I need to talk to Chelsea and Martha and Marcus to make sure that that can all work. I know there was some concern about all being on camera, and I've since found out that we don't all have to be on the camera. We just need to be heard, and we need to hear those that aren't present. So I would like to recommend that we go back to the boardroom for our July meeting. And most of these rules with this being heard and not seen have to do with the pandemic. In the past, we would have had to be heard and seen and been in a public place if we were remote. The other part of this is we will continue to live stream as we take small steps, getting back to a more normal presentation of our board meetings. We still want the public to be included. So the meetings will continue to be live streamed so that they can hear what's going on in our meetings. But at this point, the public would not be invited to come to the district office during the meeting. I think that was all that he said to us. So that's that part. And then the other is in future events, we have a board retreat on June 22nd. During that retreat, we'll be going over the rest of our existing policies on our governance role. And the expectation would be that all of those policies would go out to all the board members And I'd ask you to do a thorough review of the policies, state your thoughts and opinions, and take some notes so that we can have a good discussion and possibly be able to review them down to a point that we don't have to make a whole lot of changes after our discussion. It's our opportunity to really get down and really work on those policies and complete them rather than trying to take bits and pieces at the end of our meetings. The other part of that I'd like to review again is our communication protocols and how that, we have a document on that. I'd like to review that with the board as well. The policies specifically that we'll be working on would be 203, 204, and 209. But Martha will be able to get those out to you, I'm sure, for that board retreat. That will be in person. We are looking for a place where we can comfortably social distance and have safety in mind and have good discussion. And I'll let you know that date is, or that location as soon as possible, but the date is June 22nd. If there's no other comments from anyone, Stacy?
Just, do you have an idea on time? Is it going to be like 5 early, or is it going to be like?
One time, Dr. Sala, didn't we talk about starting at 4 if possible?
If that worked for people, you know, I think to Chair Shimmick's thoughts, you know, if we could spend the time and get through those policies, that would be a great way to go into July. So if it worked for people to start at 4, that would be great.
Any other comments or need to discuss something further with the board tonight? Okay, seeing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So made.
By Stacy, second.
Second.
By Jonathan. All those in favor say aye.
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 I'm sorry, roll call, sorry. Mary? I got to do a roll call, I guess. So Mary? Mary?
Aye.
Jonathan?
Aye.
Stacy?
Aye.
Enrique?
Aye.
That motion carries 5-0. Thank you.